Let's check out the vocoder, which is a very cool effect. It can do many things. Here I have a recording. I just made a recording of myself. I just put the EQ, gate, and compression. Let's listen to just the recording clean. Loading a vocoder like I'm the king of funk. Playing with my synthesizer like I'm Daft Punk. Okay, nice. Let's load the vocoder on it. And the vocoder takes two signals. One is the carrier, and one is a modulator. And in our case, the vocal will be the modulator. Usually we need something very rhythmic, like vocals or drums, and it works great. So by default, the carrier is noise. And here we can actually enhance the noise, which will balance the dynamics across the entire spectrum, usually result in a brighter sound. And by default, the carrier is a noise generator. So let's listen to that. It's going to sound a bit like an alien. We can drag it left to downsample, and we can drag it down or up for density. So it's less dense. Let's listen to enhance. So it's a bit more clear with the enhance, a bit more condensed. Again, just balanced dynamically across the spectrum. So the vocoder works with a series of band passes. Here we have a lot of different bandpass filters we can actually already use. But the classic way of using a vocoder is actually with an external source, usually a synthesizer. So if I click external, here I can tell it where to get the audio from, and I'm going to get it from a new track we created right here called Carrier. I just call it Carrier. And on this Carrier track, we actually just have a wavetable. So let's solo that. Let's listen to just what is going on here. It's a basic patch, just a saw wave. Usually vocoder reacts very nicely to very bright sounds. And here I even boosted the highs a tiny bit. So let's just listen to what we have, just a few chords here. Nice. Okay, now this track is completely muted because I don't even want to use it as that sound. I just want to use it as the carrier for the vocoder. So right here, carrier external, audio from that track we called carrier. And now if I play it, let's listen. Nice. Very cool. Okay, so now we can do a few things here. First of all, let's enhance. Let's listen to that. So we can hear it much more dynamically balanced with the enhanced. Here we can turn up the unvoiced, which is another noise generator, which will bring up, and it does have kind of a gate built in, so it will only pick up those very loud signals, those constants that doesn't have a pitch like F and S and all of those, help the words come out a bit clearer, some words, so it might be useful. So let's actually turn off, let's bring it back to, let's just, I'm going to deactivate the MIDI clip here, and let's go back to the vocoder, and let's listen. So we can hear, we can bring up sensitivity. We get that same noise kind of carrier. We can also decide if it's switching between the unvoiced and the modulator, fast or slow. Nice, let's reactivate the clip. So the unvoiced can really help kind of bring the detail out of the words if we lose them with our external synthesizer. Here we have the main graph of the bandpass. So this actually works as kind of filtering. Excellent. Here we can choose the amount of bands. So if we go lower, it will have less resolution. We'll hear more of the synth and less clarity of the words. If we go higher, we hear much more resolution because there's much more filters, much more bandpass filters to process the vocals. And it is going to take more CPU, but we have much more filters. Here is the range of what those filters actually cover and process. So we can take it up for a brighter sound, or down. If you want to limit that. And same from below. Here we have the bandwidth of each filter, so we can actually bring it higher. So each filter has a wider band range, or even take it lower. So now we empty out, we barely have any information left because each filter is very, very narrow. We have two modes, precise and retro. This will just decide how the bands are being reacting with each other. So in retro mode, the bands become narrower and louder in higher frequencies. Gate, let's bring it up. And this is a built-in gate which will only react to the loudest signal in their dedicated frequency band. So you can see only in this area right now we're actually getting anything because everything else is too quiet. Let's bring it back down. Level is how much volume we're actually outputting from the vocoder. So if it's too loud, we can turn it down, or we can boost it up if we need more volume. Here we have three modes of operation. Mono, both the carrier and the modulator will be in mono. In stereo, the carrier will be stereo, but the modulator is going to be mono. So if you're using a synth and using any type of stereo effects there, let's go back to the wavetable. Here I'm using random note, which will also spread out the voices. Being on stereo mode helps a lot to get that stereo expansion. And left and right, both the modulator and the carrier will be stereo. Depth, if we're gonna bring down the depth, we're actually gonna hear mostly the synth. So it's gonna take out the modulator, which is still great to bring some rhythm into those type of things. And if we bring it up, we're mostly gonna hear just the modulator, the voice in this case. So only high peaks will actually be used for vocoding. Attack and release will decide how fast the filter is going to react to the vocoding. And in really fast settings, it's going to give us the most clear sound, but it might create distortion, as you can see with the release. So let's bring up the release attack. Nice, and format is going to shift the frequency, shift the formats, so it can make it sound more feminine if you take it up, or more masculine if you take it down. And lastly, we got the dry wet here. Loading our vocoder like I'm the king of funk. Just mixing between the dry, the no effect, to the full wet, full effect. Nice. We have two other modes here. We have modulator, which will actually just use itself as the carrier and the modulator. So it's just a resynthesized version of the original voice. Let's take down the unvoiced. So here you can just use the extra controls here, the filters, of course, this kind of graphic EQ, the format. And very cool on this case is vocals, but very cool on bass to do self-modulating, kind of resynthesizing the bass and using the depth and format controls and of course the filtering. And lastly, we have pitch tracking, which will use a built-in oscillator. Here you can decide what's the wave shape of that oscillator. It's going to track the pitch. This is the range of the pitch tracking and going to create a new kind of synth line according to that. You can decide what's the high frequencies that is tracking and the low. Here's the different waveforms and the pitch itself. You can create some really cool low-end sounds here. Let's go back to the external. And let's load a loop here. Let's go with like a break or something. Let's load that instead of the vocals. So you can see it also works great on vocals, on drums. Let's check it out. Nice, very cool stuff. So Vocoder takes a carrier, which is our synthesizer, and using a modulator, which can be your vocals or drums or anything else, to add rhythmic elements to it. And the classic use of it is, of course, for the robot voice, Daft Punk, and all those cats. But you can use it for anything, like on drums. A nod to Roixop, if you guys know them. They used it in one of their music back in the day. And it can be a very cool device, very versatile, 4-man shifter, and of course, just a classic vocoder effect.